In the northeast corner of the nation's first colony, there sits a quaint little place known as Washington, D.C. And because everyone in that town is acting like a child right now, we are going to have story time. So lay back and let us tell you about the engineers that started a whiskey distillery and lived happily ever after. I mean, how could you not with all that whiskey?
Oh, sun, won't you shine on me? Won't you shine on me when the rain has come?
First order of business would be learning how to say their name. I know how to say their name. I say their name the whole time. What is it? Catoctin. But that might be wrong, but you know, we won't know that until we get there.
So before we were in the distillery, I was an engineer. I was a computer engineer from Georgia Tech.
And I was a structural engineer.
About 6.5 years ago, I was sitting in industry. I was sitting in an office. I didn't want to sit in an office for the rest of my life, doing this. And so I was getting restless, and I brought the idea of changing careers over to Becky and said, hey, I've been thinking, what do you think of starting a distillery? And she said, yeah, that's pretty nuts. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
It took about 6 months, 9 months. He almost gave up at a couple points, but then he finally came with a business plan that said, well, we, take everything we'd saved over 20 years and put it in what we like to call copper futures behind us, or stills. And I basically, work for nothing while he runs his day job and the business at night. We could make a go of it. So it was kind of one of those situations where it's like, well, what are you gonna do? So we took it to the bank.
In 2010, Catoctin Creek became the first legal distillery in the county since Prohibition. Their shop is in what was once a Buick dealership.
Yeah, in 1921 when it was built, it was Purcellville's first Buick dealership. And so 1921, also the first full year of Prohibition, which is kind of interesting. And in a town, Purcellville, that was known for its support and advocacy of the temperance movement. So kind of putting the distillery in this building in this town on Main Street is kind of a big middle finger to history.
Yeah.
Scott and Becky run an organic, zero-waste, and solar-powered production. They start with a 100% organic rye mash in their stainless steel tank.
We don't separate out the grain, so all the grain still in there, looks like porridge, tastes like porridge, and then we add the yeast and pump it into these blue tanks, these fermenters, where we do a room temperature fermentation. So we're doing like an old school kind of fermentation.
The beer goes from the blue tanks through the German still before barreling.
And you can see inside they're charred, just like, what you would normally expect to see inside a barrel.
90% of the barrels go into the flagship product, but 10% are their reserve bottles. Speaking of time, it's about noon, so...
So the Roundstone Rye is a really nice, wonderful sipping whiskey. At 80 proof, it's ridiculously smooth, super easy to drink. It's got a nice caramel, kind of vanilla, easy body with a little bit of fruit, tropical fruit, bananas and nuts, and then that nice spicy rye kick that you get.
Yeah, we had this last night. Marshmallows.
Yeah.
I don't know. We both kind of got that, and it was a very confusing time for me.
It's amazing to me, I think, what pure rye tastes like. People say, well, this doesn't taste like rye. And I'm like, well, it is rye. It's 100% rye, so that must be what rye tastes like. It's not always about the money, First and foremost, it's got to be amazing whiskey, and that's what we focus on mostly. So if we make money, then great. But if we don't, then it's still got to be good whiskey.
We can make money making it really well. And maybe we won't make as much money but we need to, we really want to keep our reputation as being really the highest quality.
Everything we do is informed by the history of what we do. So people ask us, like, why don't we make bourbon? I'm like, because Virginians didn't drink bourbon. We were drinking rye. When we started the company, we chose rye because of the history and because of the way it tasted.
we're in Washington, D.C. It's obviously pretty rainy. We're just kind of looking back at the Capitol and realizing and thinking about the fact that the Capitol and the White House used to be considered the people's home, and basically anyone could go in there and just, they were supposed to kind of treat it like they lived there. It's kind of funny to think because George Washington famously distilled whiskey at Mount Vernon. He had a distillery out there, and it was supposed to be pretty good for the time. I hear it's actually pretty heinous now, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny to think George Washington over the still being like, oh, come on in. We could walk in there and have a nice cocktail, but I think if we tried that now, might get kicked out of there.
You know, we're big cocktail people, so we feel like if you're going to make a cocktail, then make a cocktail. You know, I'm not going to sell Fireball either. You know, if you want a cinnamon flavored cocktail, then get some cinnamon and make a cocktail.
We're gonna make the Percival slide. So what we're gonna need is a quarter of a lemon. Squeeze that and drop it in. Need about a bar spoon of Demerara sugar. 3 dashes of Angostura bitters. About 3 dashes of cinnamon. 2 of nutmeg. 2 ounces of brownstone rye. Then we're gonna top that off with some very hot apple cider. Stir it just a little bit, and we'll garnish that with a cinnamon stick. And that is the Percival slide. Cheers. So, there you have it. 2 ridiculously smart people with a goofy dog put everything on the line to make remarkable whiskey. And all while honoring the memory of those boozy pilgrims. If we can build this behemoth of a country, starting with a tugboat captained by Papa Columbus, maybe there's a chance we can get our nation's capital to grab a glass and just chill out. Probably not, though. On to Maryland.